Emotions are data, but they don't have to be directives. Meaning I can feel angry and actually still talk to you. It don't mean I'm being fake. It means that I'm holding space for the fact that you made me angry and I still need to have a conversation with you.
Welcome back to the podcast. I started this podcast as a way to help Black men in all aspects of our lives. Studies show on average we lose 2.8 years of our life when we're under heavy stress. And I think we can gain those 2.8 years back if we express ourselves healthily. Stick with me as I interview therapists, doctors, advocates, activists, and friends about how we can be better as Black men and as a Black community. If you're not subscribed to us on YouTube and following us on Instagram and TikTok, you'll definitely want to do that. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. We are here with Tiffany. Tiffany is a licensed clinical social worker, right? You're also a psychotherapist, author, speaker, and we just found out that you are a doctoral candidate and founder of Coco Coalition.
Yep.
And oops, hold on. Let me get it. You also run the Safe Haven Grief Support Group.
Yes.
Can't forget about that. So Tiffany, first of all, I'm happy to have you here. Appreciate you here. Stopping by. We're gonna have a really good conversation about grief. Yeah, we're gonna have a really good conversation about grief. First of all, how are you? How's everything?
I'm feeling grateful. I'm blessed to be here. You know, from Inglewood, California, and I'm here. It's a beautiful New York day. So I'm happy to meet you as we've collaborated through Safe Haven. So it's a blessing to be connected and to be doing something of purpose on a Saturday.
Yes, absolutely. So let's get straight into it. Let's start at the beginning, right? First of all, what is grief? What's the most basic definition that you can give for grief?
So grief is an array of emotional experiences that someone has in relation to loss. Okay.
That's a good definition. You know, when I was looking up, not even necessarily looking up, I was on social media and I can't remember who it was, but somebody was saying that grief is love that has no place to go. How do you feel about that?
I feel like that's too romantic. So I'm not accepting that for my definition, but I think it's lovely and poetic. I do. I don't.
Yo, the way you just knocked that down, because I was literally about to say, and when I heard that definition, it really opened up certain parts of me. I really started to feel different about my grief, and Tiffany was like, nah.
No, because you can be angry.
And grieving.
Yes.
But do you feel like the anger comes from love?
It don't have to be. No.
Okay. So let's talk about that, right?
No.
So grief is an experience that we all have as human beings.
Absolutely.
But what are the different ways that we can experience grief? Because you just kind of spoke on like anger.
Yeah. So the thing is, the human brain, the body is really complex. Our thoughts and our emotions are connected, but also our physiological experiences connected. And so when we're moving through grief, one, it's important for me to always explain that grief is not just in connection to mourning or bereavement of the deceased. A lot of times when people think of grief, that's where they automatically go to. I really like to hold space for what we call disenfranchised grief or everyday grief. This is my relationship status changed. I moved from a single person to in a relationship, to being engaged, to being married, to being separated, to being divorced. Me and my friend broke up, like my actual friend, right? Like you can be friends with someone for 20, 25 years and, we outgrew each other. We're not friends anymore. You completely grieve over that. Your animal dying, right? Like your pet dying, you moving from one city to another, moving from one community to another, you not getting the promotion that you wanted, you not getting the grade that you wanted, you not getting anything that you wanted, you having a space of realizing, oh man, I'm not who I thought I was going to be. Or my life is nowhere what I thought it was going to be. Or I'm grieving that old part of me that used to be really excited about life. And now I'm really jaded and I'm not excited about anything. And I miss that joy, right? So there's so many experiences connected to loss, like our loss of hope, our loss of freedom. You know, it can be tangible, it could be intangible. And with that, we are always grieving something. And when you know that you're always grieving something, then it creates a different experience with grief where you learn how to open up space to hold for the myriad of experiences that happen. So part of grief is emotional. Part of grief is physiological. Change in appetite, change in sleeping, change in motivation, well, that's behavior, but it could be change in comprehension, right? Like something that happens a lot is brain fog. When you're grieving something, it's difficult for you to concentrate or maybe do things that would be very simple for you, right? So like if you're used to reading really fast and comprehending something, when you're going through grief fog, you might not comprehend as easily. It could be something that someone said, something you're reading, something you're watching. Like I said, appetite, sleep, energy level. It could be like you can have tremors, you can be really nervous, you could be really restless. So these are all physiological things, of course, like heart rate, anxiousness, stuff like that. Then you have behavioral things. That's crying, that's not crying, that's becoming very withdrawn, that's isolating, that is become really short-tempered with people. So you're because you're more irritable, you're taking things out on people. That could be you again with the restlessness. Like some of these things cross over. Then you have all the emotions, because sadness is a thing, anger, resentment, self-reprieve, when people feel like, oh, if I just would have did this, I could have helped it, or if I just would have did this, this wouldn't have happened, or regret, going back and forth in your head around like what could have changed the outcome, any outcome, you not getting a job, your relationship ending, in anything, right? So grief is really complex because not only is it something we're experiencing, but because we're social creatures, we want someone deep down inside to validate our experience. But outside of death, most people do not validate grief, which is why it's often called disenfranchised. Right? You might say, oh, I just broke up with my girl. You might have some homies that be like, F that B, you know, keep moving.
Facts.
Right?
Facts.
And then somebody else, man, bro, like, I'm sorry. I know you was really invested in that. Right? Those friends that told you to go to the club, those friends that told you to get over her, those friends that told you to get on from somebody else to get over it, that doesn't feel validating because they don't really understand the depth of hope that's broken now. They don't understand the grief that you are having around the life you thought you were going to build with that woman. Right? So it feels more validating for at least the person. They may not have nothing to say, but they're like, man, I'm sorry, bro.
Yeah. Man, you just said a word, man. You just said a lot in a really good way. And one of the things that really resonated with me is the disenfranchised grief, because I started to think about and connect all the dots in different moments where I was grieving. My dog passing away. Oh my God, man. I still remember like my dog like passing away was a time, because I didn't think that would impact me as much as it impacted me. I'm like, man, it's just a dog, right? But I'm like, yo, all the moments I've shared with this guy, man, like all the moments where like I was, you know, I felt like I didn't have anybody around me, where things was happening, or like I'm coming back from college and I see my dog and he sees me and he's happy, right? He's just like, he's excited. Like, I haven't seen you in Matt. I'm like, yo, I haven't seen you in Matt.
And that feels good to feel that love from something,
you know what I'm saying?
some source, right?
Man, and so like, I just started thinking about all those times, and like losing a pet is so interesting because like the moments afterwards, like like the days after, I remember my brother, we had a routine where in the morning we let him out. So my brother, the day after, he still tried, and then he came back into the living room. He's like, "Yo, bro, he's not there no more." And I was like, "Yeah, bro." And I just gave him a hug, and I was just like, "Damn, son," because I remember my dad taking him out, like, cause he had to get put down because he was just like, he couldn't walk, he couldn't do anything for himself. And it was so aggressive, like how quickly it happened. It was like nobody was expecting it. And so we had to put him down. And I remember like looking at my dog, and it's like he knew. I really, every time I tell this story, I have no doubt in my mind he knew. I have no doubt, because the look that he gave me, it's hard to explain, but the look that he gave me, it was like, yeah, bro. All right, bye. You know, like this is the last time I'm gonna see you. His eyes were like bloodshot red. And my dad is wheeling him out, and I'm giving him a hug while he's going. I'm just saying bye and sorry. And then like, that was it. That was the last time I saw him. But the look he gave me, it was like some form of closure, at least for me, because it's like he knew. At least he knew. Right. And so like that I connected that. But then also like when I went through my breakup, both breakups, I've gone through two breakups in my life, two really big breakups in my life. The second breakup, I remember it was after she cheated on me. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, I don't need this shorty. I'm good. Like, I'm straight, blah, blah, blah. Right?
Not that simple.
You're right. I don't need her. She cheated. I'm straight, right?
It's not that simple.
But then I found myself in the crib just chilling on a couch thinking to myself, like, damn, bro, like, not even necessarily like mad about the cheating, but just mad about the fact that like now I'm not in a relationship anymore. I did actually at one point in time really think that we would be able to build something together. And that's not the reality that I'm in anymore. So just the loss of, like what you said, the hope. Right. And then also just having to deal with the fact that I'm not in the reality that I thought I was setting up for myself. Yes. Right. Yes. So I was grieving the reality that I'm not in, and the reality that I'm in.
Exactly. And this is literally what was happening for people in COVID, right? Like more of the intangible, conceptual, existential dynamics in our lives that people grieved, right? The loss of freedom, loss of agency, loss of choice, right? For folks in Black bodies, like you seeing your humanity taken advantage of, disrespected, oppressed, killed, whatever, like all these things, it runs really, really deep, right? Yeah. For you to see these stories of people getting killed, experiences of police brutality, it's enraging because you grieve the hope for humanness, like for a whole group of people or groups of people to not see your humanity, right, and feel like it's okay if I just kill you, and then life goes on. Right. It's okay if I take your child. It's okay if I take your girlfriend. It's okay if I harm you, right? Like that hurts to know, like, yeah, you can psych yourself out and be like, oh yeah, them just white people, right? But it's more than that. The fact that you have to walk around not feeling safe in your own body, not feeling safe in your own community, what city, state, whatever it is, because someone sees you as a threat, someone sees you as less than human, someone sees you as something else. Like there is consistent grief around that. Yep. And again, something that's happening unconsciously that we don't acknowledge because you just move on. You just do life. If you sit in your feelings, then what you gonna do, right? But it's like we as humans are very unique from other animals because of our capacity to feel, because of our capacity to connect to purpose, because our capacity to connect to like self-actualization. And when we don't honor those processes, we get disconnected from ourselves.
All right, I'm interrupting this podcast episode to let you guys know to leave a review on the podcast. Please, 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 if you are listening to this episode and you're finding value in this episode, you're enjoying the conversation, or you've enjoyed a previous episode or conversation, and it's safe to operate your phone right now, please leave us a review. Your review is a free and easy way to support us, and it helps us reach more people like you. We're on a mission to build a stronger, more connected Black community, starting with Black men. And you can help us on that mission by taking a minute out of your day to leave a review. Your review helps us generate more listeners, which in turn generates more revenue, allowing us to expand the platform even further. So please take a few seconds out of your day. I know you're busy. I understand. I know you're doing a lot, but it will help us greatly if you would just take a few seconds out of your day to leave a review right now. Did you leave a review yet? All right, let's get back to the episode.
What does that disconnection look like, and why is that such a problem? Because I just went to Atlanta and I did a whole slew of interviews, and there's a lot of dope people doing a lot of dope stuff in Atlanta. But what I realized is that a lot of them are running from their feelings. They're running from their emotions, and it's helped them because they've poured a lot of that energy into work, and like they're doing great stuff in business and work and all that kind of stuff.
But they'll always catch up with you.
But yeah, that too. And I'm just like, yo, bro, like, you're a millionaire. You're doing a great job right now. You can slow down and start to process. So like, let's talk about the disconnection.
Yeah.
What does that do and why is that important? Because some people just don't like, especially for us as men, we don't understand, why is it a problem for me to be disconnected from myself if I'm making all this money?
I may or may not get emotional. Okay, just letting you know.
It's okay.
Because emotional disconnection is, first off, I'm just going to give a little history. I have a very Afrocentric perspective when I do clinical work. Going back to the statement I made about folks not seeing your humanity, we have internalized the fact that we're not human. And that is a consequence of enslavement, chattel slavery, institutional and systemic oppression, racism. Think about the idea that you were taken anywhere from a 20-mile to 800-mile walking journey, not being able to express any emotion. If you were tired, you get beat. If you express sadness, you get beat. If you express anger, you get beat. If you express anything other than contentment, it was a threat to your life. Then you get on a boat. Same thing. You express any emotion, you get no food, you get beat, you get separated, right? Then you go through the process of being separated from your family, from your tribe. Again, you have all these stages where you're starting to learn and get conditioned. There's no space for you to feel. There's no space for you to feel. So then as this continues to happen and you realize feeling anything is associated with pain, feeling anything is associated with death, feeling anything is an association to having an experience where my life is on the line, then we internalize emotion is bad. Emotion is not helpful. You have to survive. We're in survival mode. But also think about this. There is power in feeling emotions, because I tell people emotions are data. It's literally just information that is revealing to you how you're experiencing your external world, and also how you're experiencing your internal sense of self. Your emotions share with you your values, shares with you what matters to you. It shares when you feel violated. It shares when you are wanting something to get closer to something or needing to distance yourself from something. But if you disconnect from all of that information, how do you get to really learn yourself? Like, there's so many aspects of yourself that you will never connect to. So I often tell clients or anyone that I'm working with that When you disconnect from your emotions, you're actually really disconnecting from who you are, your identity. And you can never be completely authentic when you're disconnected from yourself. And so for the person that's like, oh, I'm real, I'm this, I'm that. No, you're not. You're not. Because if for you, emotional expression is an extreme of anger or chill, you haven't allowed yourself to experience a whole like spectrum of who you are.
Right.
You don't even know who you are joyful. You don't even know who you are excited. You don't even know who you are hopeful. I mean, you might be out here being envious and jealous, but you ain't gonna acknowledge it.
Right.
We just went, oh, they hating on me. Well, guess what? Jealousy is actually a very important and insightful emotion because it lets you know I really desire that. That's actually something that's really important to me. But I haven't given myself the permission to experience that. I haven't given myself the permission to go after that, right? So then it gets deflected and then like turned into something else. You know what I mean? So emotional connection looks like acknowledging the feeling. It looks like labeling the feeling and then deciding what you want to do with it. Yeah. Because feelings or emotions are data. They don't have to be directives. Meaning,
hold on. Tiffany, Jesus Christ. Say that again, Tiffany.
Emotions are data, but they don't have to be directives. Meaning, I can feel angry and actually still talk to you. It don't mean I'm being fake. It means that I'm holding space for the fact that you made me angry and I still need to have a conversation with you. And some people feel like, well, if I'm angry, I'm cool after them. Well, do you want to repair? Do you want to explore? Do you want to express yourself? Do you want to communicate? Do you want to acknowledge that there was something that was done? No, okay, cool. I'm be angry. Because my emotional experience is not going to impact you as much as it's going to impact me. Because as I mentioned earlier, our bodies are very complex things and our emotional experiences always impact our physiological experience. So when we don't acknowledge, process, release lower frequency emotions like anger, resentment, sadness, jealousy, melancholy, regret, big for us, shame and guilt. It impacts our nervous systems. It impacts our digestive systems. It impacts our immune system. It impacts our cardiovascular system. Go do some research around what group of people got health disparities around cardiovascular issues. Or oncology, cancer, right? Like the state in which your body is literally attacking itself. In cancer, your body is literally attacking itself. Now, it's not to say that everyone gets cancer because it's just an emotional issue, right? I'm not going to minimize it. There's lots of different things that impact why we develop different illnesses and disorders, conditions, chronic, acute, whatever. However, emotional experience absolutely impacts how your physical health outcomes look. And there's tons of research from that. It doesn't matter from the Western side, Eastern side, indigenous understanding.
Can we get into that? Because I know there's some skeptics. I know there's some skeptics that are like, man, she chatting, man. I don't need to feel my emotions. Do you have, right? And I always want to talk to those guys because I know there's some people that are going to be listening, that are going to see this or hear this or whatever the case may be and be like, it ain't that serious. I'm chilling. I'm good. Yes.
That's what white people want you to think.
Right. And I want you to just speak on, do you have some research or do you have like something that you can point to that speaks to that fact that you
have? So if someone, I can drop some book names, but let's just say you don't read. Let's just say you look up some blogs.
Let's just say that.
Right.
Because for sure.
Let's just say you look at some blogs that summarize something.
Right.
I will always recommend folks look at the book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Okay. I got that.
Tons of research that is showing the impact of what a distressed nervous system does to your mental health, to your physical health. So everything that the brain does goes back to survival.
Right.
Anything that threatens our sense of survival, like the brain is really creative and it creates all these tactics, all these defenses, all these stories to make sure that you stay okay. So I don't need to feel, that is your brain's way of keeping you okay, because it feels like a threat to feel anything. I'm too afraid of feeling anything, and then really intensely, because I'm afraid that I won't be able to focus. I'm afraid I won't be able to go to my job. I'm afraid that my peers won't respect me. I'm afraid that this woman is not going to respect me. I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to get as far as I want to be. But it's fear. And because it's fear, that is positioning like your body in a sense of threat. So it's easier to disconnect from your emotions to keep your body safe, right? And most of the time that happens because of experiences of threat that we've had. So your nervous system, really what this book is about is your body keeps the score and it always wins. If you think about, we have a physical body, we also have an emotional body. And our emotional body is connected to memories that we've experienced in our lifetime, and memories that we've actually downloaded because of genetics, or epigenetics is what it's called. So when you're in your mother's womb,
talk about it.
Technically it's like this. Your mother is born with all the eggs that she's going to have when she comes into this world. So imagine when she's in her grandmother, when she's in your grandmother's womb, to some extent, you're in there. Like your capacity is in there, right? Because you're an egg.
That's actually wild to think about.
Right. So
damn,
you're not completely there because the sperm hasn't met, right? But but
my dad didn't do what he needs to do.
Right? But the potential is there. And so what happens is anything that a mother experiences, it impacts the uteral environment. All emotions, food, sound, any sensory experience, it impacts it. And when we experience threats, when we experience any extreme experiences, it actually changes the brain. And so our life experience is changing our biology at every single moment, whether we realize it or not, you know? And so the idea the body keeps the score is that everything you experience, your body is holding on to on a cellular level. It's constantly impacting every system in your body. It's constantly impacting your brain. It's constantly impacting everything that you don't even know is going on within you. And so if you don't do what you need to do to acknowledge it, it's going to manifest in a lot of different ways, like illnesses. So the idea, the body keeps the score. The body is paying attention to everything you feel and you experience. And if you don't put yourself on a path to heal the wounds, the pain, the distress that your body has experienced, it's going to win. And it's going to cut your life short. It's going to impact you in ways that you don't even think. So The Body Keeps the Score is a really great book. There is a study called the ACE study. Adverse Childhood Experiences, that was done with CDC and Kaiser. And essentially, it's evolved over the years, but essentially the first iteration of it was they surveyed 30,000 patients, and they asked them, how many of these experiences did you have before the age of 18. And so it's 10 different experiences. It's like having an incarcerated family member, experiencing homelessness, witnessing your mother get abused, having some type of abuse in the home, witnessing substance abuse, witnessing mental illness. And essentially it was like, once you got to 4, it started changing your body. Now, you can get about 10 Black people and a lot of them will have more than 4.
Yep.
Right? Because unfortunately, again, this is where history comes in. Our experiences are not just reflective of the present, they're reflective of the past. Right? It's very hard to like not meet somebody with a non-dysfunctional family.
Yeah. Like, yo, your family didn't have that go on?
Right?
Really?
Like, because it's the history of secrecy, of protection, of sexual assault, of molestation, of disregard, of instilling fear in the matter of respect, of minimizing emotional expression, right? Of putting the church or aspects of church or religion over agency and expression and doing things that you want to do, right? The idea of cultural ideas of like respect and loyalty and family and connection override safety. Right. And so these things are passed down. But what happens to the child who doesn't feel emotionally safe to express that they're afraid of being around uncle or auntie or grandma or your mama's new boyfriend or your dad or whatever, for whatever reason? Right. You feel like I can't really express myself because if I do, I'm going to get harmed. Just like those enslaved people. And if your body is constantly feeling unsafe, it's going to be hypervigilant. You're going to have higher levels of cortisol production, like different stress hormones. If your body is always in a state of producing stress hormones, it attacks your immune system. It attacks your nervous system. You got to be on all the time because your body is actually in survival and threat mode all the time. That's why lazy feels bad. I mean, that's why doing nothing feels lazy. That's why resting feels bad, because you need that constant overstimulation. But the body's not supposed to be in that state. But because you don't even know how to acknowledge, I'm afraid of being broke. I'm afraid of not being accepted. I'm afraid of not being respected. Just acknowledging those emotions will allow you to understand what's guiding my behaviors, what's guiding my choices.
Right.
Is that really what I want? If it is, cool. If it's not, then you're living in constant disharmony for yourself. So it's really all connected. So I could talk about this all day, but we can't do that. But I would say I would recommend somebody look at the ACE study. I would recommend somebody look at post-traumatic slave disorder. Yes. I would. Dr. Joy. Yes. I would recommend that somebody look at The Body Keeps the Score. Those are 3 resources that I would highly recommend.
Tiffany, we're going to let that sit for a little bit because we have a tradition on the podcast. I don't know if you know it or not. When we have a guest that comes in and is preaching, we got to give the audience some time to really, you just said a lot.
I know. Let's sit and breathe.
Yeah, we gotta give the audience some time to digest all of that because wow. I wish I had talked to you before I went to Atlanta. Because I was sitting across, like I'm talking to these millionaires. I'm like, wow, you're really afraid right now. You're terrified of feeling emotions. And that's why you run so deeply into business and it's worked for you. You're a millionaire, but you still are terrified. You're like deathly afraid. And so you keep grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding. And you're working and working and working and working and working. And it's like, I get it. I understand. Yes, there's always more to be done. But at some point in time, when are you going to work on yourself?
Well, it's hard to stop when you actually don't feel like you're good enough.
Can you talk about that?
Do you really want to talk about it? Because the reality of the security of I was not loved enough. I was not validated. I was not seen. I was not heard. I was not understood. So now I'm going to go on a life journey to ensure that that doesn't happen. But in reality, I don't think I'll ever not feel that way. So I have to constantly look for the things that make me feel understood or validated or seen or heard. But the reality is no one can make me feel loved enough. No one can make me understood enough. No one can make me feel enough until I decide I'm there. Until I do that maybe inner child work to validate myself. And a lot of times the folks on the grind journey and the endless, award and acknowledgement and let me go after this accolade, it's because they're extremely insecure people.
They ain't gonna like that one.
Because once I started getting into this and I realized, people gotta nominate themselves for awards. People you gotta ask people to nominate you for awards. You actually have to put yourself out there and ask for acknowledgement. Most of the time, people don't just randomly give you an award. Sometimes it happens, but a lot of times it doesn't. So you are putting it on your goal list that I need this acknowledgement. You're putting this on your goal list that I need to be in this publication. You're putting this on your goal list that I need this accolade. This is going to make me seem enough. This is going to make me seem acceptable. This is going to make me seem valuable and worthy. And a lot of people are striving to feel valued and worthy because unfortunately they had circumstances where they didn't get the love, the support, the nurturing, the care, the compassion that they actually needed in pivotal times in development to feel secure. But if you don't really know that, then you can't really work on it, And so then it's just like this, you're drinking from this forever fountain of emptiness. And that's what all your constant pursuits are. And you can never get in a space of contentment or gratitude that, I got to fill up this space and teach people. It was more like, yes, I walked this stage. I spoke to these many people. Now what's next? But it's not really connected to your purpose. It's not really connected to what you think your calling is. It's connected to the need for validation and love that you're trying to pursue.
Man, geez, Louise, man. I'm telling you, it was an experience. That Atlanta trip was an experience because I was like, wow. I'm not a millionaire, but I would not trade places with this person. Because this it seemed just the conversation was, even the conversation for me was exhausting. After the conversation, I don't know if you probably have. You've had conversations with people and there's energy transference. I don't know how to describe it, but after the conversation, I felt dark. Tiffany. No,
I know. I understand.
Tiffany,
I understand.
For real.
Yeah.
It had me really rethink, I don't want to interview certain folks. I don't want certain folks in my space. I don't want to have conversations with certain folks. And this is not judging people at all. It's just literally protecting my energy because after that, after a few of those conversations, I was like, I have to decompress, not because of me, but because of what the energy that was transferred onto me in the space. And people that haven't that if you're not in tune, you're not gonna understand. It sounds like hoopla,
but it's not.
But it's real.
I've talked about the mind and body connection, but then that's the other aspect. We have a spirit connection, right? But if you don't it's funny because, no offense, Black people will talk about like, oh, I'm Christian, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, but they don't really understand the depths of what spirit means. Like the metaphysical is real. It is very, very real, and spiritual dis-ease can cause physical disease.
Tiffany, you preach it.
It's so true though. And when you're not still, it's very difficult again to connect with yourself. Right. This is one reason why I'm such a big proponent of connecting with nature to build our connection with ourselves. I feel like because so many people are in urban settings and in their homes, in their offices, going, there is a big disservice that we've experienced where we've been really disconnected from nature. And people are coming back to nature. Like COVID brought so many people interest in botany and becoming plant moms and dads and all the stuff, right? But that is nature. And the thing is, we as humans act outside of nature, the order of nature all the time. For instance, somebody who really doesn't want change to happen or is very negative when change happens, I can tell that they don't have a connection to nature because there's nothing in nature that stays the same. Change is literally one of the only things that is constant. It doesn't matter if you live in a place like LA where it's not 4 real seasons. You do know that there are different seasons. You do know that there is a time to rest or a time to hibernate. You do know that there is a time to plant and harvest. You do know that there's a time for things to bloom. You do know that there's a time to just enjoy the things, right? Like that is what nature shows us. You can look at any transformative process of something going into a cocoon and spending time there and then coming out in another state of existence, right? Like there are so many just natural rules in nature outside of humans that we don't pay attention to, but can provide so many lessons in how do we live and exist as humans. And trees have these dynamic networks of connection where they take care of each other. They communicate. If there's an animal threatening, a tree can actually send that to another tree. And there's all kinds of different things that happen. Why am I bringing this up? Because in nature, everything is connected. And a bee knows it needs the flower. And the ant knows that it needs the wood. And the jaguar knows that it needs the mountain. But humans, we don't always know what we need. And sometimes we need rest. Sometimes we need to be still. Sometimes we need water. Sometimes we need connection. Sometimes we need isolation. Sometimes we need love. Sometimes we need nurturing. But we're not always connected to our needs because of a lot of historic reasons where it's like, you're not human enough to go to the doctor, to feed your own child, to live in a home, to get respect, to get support, to get care. And it just becomes a way of life and we internalize it. So now in modern society, we don't even often see emotional needs as necessary. We see them as burdensome. We see them as barriers to be what we're supposed to be. But who told you were supposed to be anything other than human? You can be a human with a purpose. But you being a human with a purpose doesn't mean that you can't admit that you're sad.
Right.
or angry or afraid
Right.
or confused or lost. Because people, especially these kind of people that you're talking about, you know, they will fulfill like an ideal, but be disconnected from the reality of like who they really are supposed to be. I'm supposed to be the person that looks like this. I'm supposed to be the person that walks like this, that talks like this, that has this bravado, that presents myself in this way, because that's what I need for survival. That's what I need for respect. That's what I need to get into these spaces, right? Black people, we have really mastered the art of mask wearing. But what happens when you never take the mask off? What happens when you keep the mask on and you don't even see yourself? That's a really lonely life. And that's why literally World Health Organization has declared loneliness an epidemic. Because you can have 5 million followers and still not want to be here.
Let's talk about it. Man, Tiffany, you are hitting. This was supposed to be just about grief, but I'm so glad we've talked about grief, but we've dived into emotional connection and a lot of different things that I don't feel like we talk enough about. Even though we do talk about it, but we don't talk enough about it in depth like this. Like, you've really done a good job of explaining the issue and how it can lead to more issues and what it looks like in reality.
Domino effect.
Man, for real. And you know what's so interesting? You mentioned the mask. That reminded me of when I was in college and I had the mask on. Oh man, I was, there was a term.
Performative.
Oh, for sure. There's a term, functional depression. I don't think it's a scientific term.
Yeah.
Right. But literally, when I explain it, I know some men will be able to identify with it. So I was going through a period where after the breakup, I'm going through my grief. I'm not really identifying with the grief because I'm like, nah, there's no way like I could be grieving like this. And I can't believe, like, I'm still going through the process of understanding that I'm in a new reality because we were in a relationship for like 4 or 5 years. At that age, I was like 18, 19. As naive as it may seem now, I thought that this is the person I'm going to be with for the rest of my life.
Absolutely.
Right? First love type of thing. So I'm going through like my entire reality being shattered. Right? And I'm in college, right? I know I need to still go to school because these are the years that if I don't do what I need to do, you get what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to be able to make a living. I'm not going to be able to survive. So I put the mask on fully, right? I went to school, and when I was in school, I was this talkative guy, charismatic, chilling. I would laugh around with people, and nobody knew. Nobody had any idea. And I would go back home, and when I'm home, I was depressed. This is what they call functional depression, where you basically have two sides of yourself that you split. And it's like every day you're going out into the world, you're pretending to be this person that has it all figured out and all together, right? And that's what people saw me as, like, yo, Kofi, you're doing such a great job in school. I'm getting all this accolade and praise for all the work that I'm doing, the output, right? But on the inside, internally, right, I felt terrible. And I would go home and I would cry all the time. And I literally hated being home. I hated it so much. And I wish at that time, and that's what led to like the creation of this platform, Safe Haven, all of that. I wish at that time I had someone that stopped me and was like, yo, bro, you're going through a really difficult time. It's okay for you to feel this way. And you probably should tap in with a therapist, right? That's why we do the work that we do. That's why we have the webinar still to this day where we teach Black men how to find a dope therapist, where we take them through the process of what it looks like to go through the journey of understanding what you need and then how to figure out how to find that inner therapist. Because a lot of men, they'll have this and they'll know that there's a problem, but they just don't know how to address it, where to go, what to do, right? And so that's why we do that, right? So if there's any men that are listening, always want to make sure I plug it in. If you are listening to this right now, if you're watching this right now, you identify with what we're talking about, please tap in to the link in our bio on Instagram. That's Express Yourself Black Men on Instagram, on TikTok. click the link in our bio, sign up for the webinar. Let us show you how to identify first what you need in a therapist, what it is that you need to be working on, and then how to find a therapist, where to look for therapists so that you can start your journey, right? And if you're not on social media, if you know someone that's not on social media and you want to give them access to it, just go to expressyourselfblackman.com/links. And then the first button is the webinar. Man, Tiffany, man, geez, you bringing so much up for me right now that I'm thinking about, like, just different times that I was going through stuff. And I was just like, man, I really needed to have, I wish I had, like, that's why we do it now. But I always think about, like, man, I wish we were having these conversations earlier. So many people, like, need to hear what you just said, just about, like, just the disconnectedness and, like, what it does, and just understanding, like, how the impact that it can have on you, like, long term.
Yeah.
What would you say? I know we've talked about it a little bit. What would you say some of the biggest mistakes we're making when it comes to grief, maybe emotional connection, healing? Just like, I know that's very broad, so let me leave it.
Oh, no, because I got things coming up. Okay,
go ahead.
Let me tell you something.
Listen, go ahead.
Should I look in the camera? Is this
You can go ahead. If you want to talk straight to black men, yeah, go to the camera.
When someone approaches me for therapy, ask 3 questions.
Okay.
Say, what is bringing you to therapy right now? What's been your experience with therapy, and what you want to walk away with? So often, people say to me, I want to heal. Healing is a journey forever. You know those 3 dots, like in a sentence, those are called ellipses. That means something continues. It goes on. Social media has led people astray, thinking that there's a period after healing. There's no heal period. There's healing ... So one thing I would want people to know is, no matter the process you take in acknowledging where you are, what's happened to you, you are always meeting yourself at a new place. And life at the same time is always still happening, which means there will always be cuts. There will always be nicks and bruises. There will always be wounds. So this romanticized idea that happened in social media within the last 4 years that tell people don't get into a relationship, you need to heal first. It's not possible. It's not possible. It's not real. Because honestly, as a person in a black body, there is some harm always being done to you that you have to mitigate. You can't get away from it. And even if you decide to isolate yourself, we are social beings. We're supposed to be connected. So the more disconnected you become from people, the more disconnected you actually become from yourself. The more isolated and withdrawn you become from people, the higher chances of depression that you have. And with depression, trigger warning, comes suicidal ideations.
I definitely experienced that. Yep.
Because we're not meant to live in isolation.
Yep.
So the healing thing, I want people to know that that's a journey, and that constantly is meeting different versions of yourself. This is a conceptualization I use with my clients all the time. Who you were 5 years ago might be a different version from you, who you are now. So if we're grieving some aspect of that version, please don't hold yourself captive.
Say it one more time, Tiffany, because
if you're grieving an aspect, a choice, a dynamic, a decision, an experience of a previous version of yourself, don't hold yourself captive in the present to that. What do I mean? Most people can relate to a breakup, right? Okay.
Yep. You hit it right on the head.
I can't believe I did that. Why'd I choose him? Why'd I choose her? Why'd I choose that? Why'd I go there? And now you don't trust yourself. But you've been in therapy, you have more positive friends, you've learned some things. Your version of your current self is not the same as that version of yourself with that person.
Right.
So don't hold yourself captive now based off of the previous version of yourself. Let's just grieve the experience that you had, acknowledge the lessons that you learned, acknowledge the things that have shifted, and be connected to who you are in the present. Your internal resources, your external resources, your social networks, like all of that matters. Your clarity around what you want and what you don't want. This is you in the current version. So let's honor who that person is. So that's something that I would say in general when it comes to grief or the emotional thing, right? Acknowledgement is everything. Because we unknowingly are constantly seeking acknowledgement from other people, it's important. I'm never going to say it's not important. Like when people are like, oh, I don't need validation from other people. That's a lie. You're a human. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
That's natural.
Yeah. I used to think that way until I started.
You need both.
Yeah, for sure.
You got to start with your own acknowledgement.
Yes.
Because I don't need you to tell me I'm sad. Now, if I can't see myself and you say, Tiff, are you sad right now? That's one thing. But I need to, it would be helpful for me to create space throughout my day, not life, day, to check in with myself. How am I feeling right now? Because my sadness can come across in my work. My sadness can come across in my interactions. My sadness can come across in whether I'm going to eat or not. Right? Because your emotions impact your physical being and your spiritual being, creating space for yourself to check in with yourself daily is important. So something that I'm really big on is morning and evening routines.
Okay.
Morning routines look like, and I don't care if you only have 5 minutes or if you have 50 minutes. Most people go to the bathroom in the morning. Okay, so at least be on the toilet for like 5 minutes. Listen. Most people go to the bathroom in the morning. But that's a pretty...
We will hope.
That's a pretty normal biological thing. Like once you wake up, you have to use the bathroom.
Oh, I was talking about like brushing their teeth.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. No. Okay. I'm just saying I use bathroom time as an example because there are some people that as soon as they get up, they check their phone, they put their clothes on and they like go out the door within like 10, 15 minutes. They don't give themselves time. So that's, I'm saying most of the time before somebody has to get out the house, they go to the bathroom. So let's just say you're that person that doesn't make a lot of morning time, right? And you only have 5 minutes. What I would tell someone is, I want you to take a couple of deep breaths, scan your body, check in with how your body feeling. Is it feeling distressed? Is it feeling excited? Are you feeling numb? Feeling whatever? Check in with any emotions that are going on, because yes, you just woke up, but you could be having residual stuff from the night before, the day before, and just check in with that. Acknowledge that for yourself. And like something like that can be like very, very simple. And maybe add a gratitude statement, add an affirmation,
little
right?
razzle dazzle.
A little razzle dazzle, a little mindfulness, right? Very simple. Let's say you have the type of job where you're going, right? You do working lunches. I'm so against working lunches. But let's say you don't take lunch, you do a working lunch. If you can take 3 minutes to just do some breath work. And what I mean is inhaling through your nose, exhaling out your mouth. Like do that 5 seconds inhale, 5 second exhale. Do that like 6 or 7 times. That's like a minute and a half right there. That right there slows your body down. That right there allows you to create space to, once again, scan your body. How's my body feeling? Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling angry? Am I irritated? Am I sad? But these little things add up for you to just check in with yourself. Because then as you learn to check in with yourself, you can learn to start asking yourself, what do I need? Right. Ooh. And that's a whole nother conversation because, a lot of times people don't know what they need, but they go to, not in moderation, they go to what I say are like the 5 enemies.
Explain. What do you mean? What's that?
For coping.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about it.
We have sex.
Woo.
And nothing wrong with sex at all.
Hey, listen. Amen.
In moderation. And in a way that's healthy for you.
Right.
Food. Nothing wrong with food. In moderation. In what's healthy for you. Because as a person that works with eating disorders, I understand how food is used in a way that has nothing to do with nutrition. And our relationships with our food and body for a lot of people are really, really complex.
Yep.
Really, really complex. And so if you don't know that you're feeling anxious, you might go eat. If you don't know that you have something to say and you don't want to acknowledge you have something to say, you might scarf things down to keep yourself silent. If you don't know that you're feeling out of control, you might go into a restrictive state and stop eating. Because food becomes a tool for a lot of people. Okay. Then we have spending. Again, money is energy. It's going to circulate. We're talking about moderation. But impulsiveness, doing things to buy things to make you feel better about yourself or hoping that other people accept you or all these things. Dangerous. Then we have overconsumption in media, social, TV, all the things. People can spend 5 hours after work. What Netflix show I'm gonna watch? What I'm watching on Hulu? How I'm about to spend 3 hours on TikTok. It's numbing. It's disconnecting. Well, yeah, Tiffany, I just want to chill. I want to watch mindless TV. Why? Because I'm stressed. Okay, can we deal with the stress? Because you watching that show isn't going to take the stress away. Do you need to change your lifestyle? Do you need to change your job? Do you need to change your environment? Do you need to change your relationship? Do you need to change your perception? Do you need to get some other coping tools to help your body regulate? But you numbing and disconnecting from what's going on is not going to help you.
Lord Jesus.
And then we have substances. Again, nothing wrong. You want to smoke? Go ahead. You want to snort something? Go ahead. It don't matter. It's the moderation piece. Because when something has more control over you than you have control over it, sex, spending, watching things, food, substances, that's when it's problematic.
And those are the 5 enemies.
Yeah.
Whew. Lord.
So I encourage clients to do these routines throughout the day, morning check-ins throughout the day, evening, so that they can learn how to effectively regulate themselves so they're not going to these things.
Right. Jeez. You lead our group in Safe Haven, the grief group, the grief support group. You do that once a month. Can you talk to me about what that group is and how you create a space for the men in Safe Haven to kind of express some of the things that they're dealing with when it comes to grief?
Yeah. So first off, it's an honor. So thank you.
Of course.
And I always lead with that because gender dynamics are very interesting, right? And I don't want to offend somebody. I might offend somebody. I'm just not a big fan of, unless it's actually purpose driven, men creating spaces for women or women creating spaces for men. I'm just not a fan of that unless you know you were called to that.
Right. There's nothing wrong with that being your truth.
And so for me, I've always had a desire to do things with Black men, right? And so when our paths crossed, I was like, okay, well, thank you, God. Thank you, Divine. It's time. But when I'm in that space, I am always letting them know, this is your space and I am just here. I am just here. So that's important for me, that they know that they get to take up space, because in my experience, Black men feel threatened, or not feel threatened, but other people feel threatened by Black men taking up space. So Black men often feel like they don't deserve to take up space. And I want you to take up space in any way you want. You want to use profanity. You want to talk about that woman that get on your nerves. You want to talk about how angry you are, how hurt you are, how sad you are, all the things. I want you to take up space. So we always start from that, you know. The brothers, they set their own community guidelines no matter what, that's always the thing. And it is a combination between processing, which is when you acknowledge a challenge that you're having and you're expressing emotion. A space between psychoeducation, where I am giving them literature or some type of tools that have to do with like grief and mental health, and then the space for support. So I always let people know, hey, you get to choose. Do you just want encouragement or do you want feedback? And I let them choose, because sometimes when we're grieving something, we don't want somebody's opinion.
Facts.
And sometimes we do, and it's going to be okay is not enough. So like, I like to create the space where all of it is acceptable. Want folks to know it's okay to not be okay.
Got on the shirt.
Right. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be confused. It's okay to be hurt. It's okay to be melancholy. It's okay to just be lost. I think people feel like they always have to have an answer in their life, and you don't. It's just not real, you know, and especially when you're feeling grief, it will disorient you. Like you lost something. Right? I lost a relationship. There's a part of my identity that's gone. I lost my pet. There's a part of my identity that's gone. I didn't get that promotion. I was so sure that they respected me enough. There's a part of my identity that's impacted by that, right? When we experience loss, it shakes us to our core, and we just don't always give the space to acknowledge that, right? And so we do that in that group. And just like we were talking about disenfranchised grief today, you know, always starting with, this is not just for death-related bereavement. This is mourning any type of loss. And so that's important. We go through different tasks associated with loss, like accepting loss, processing loss, being able to acclimate to, you know, the loss happening, and then being able to integrate our connection to the thing, but then still moving on with life.
Tiffany. So
it's a great group. I think it's a great group.
I for sure. It's definitely a great group. Man, you said something that I definitely think we need to tap into. Just people feeling like, and I'm not even going to say people, I'm going to say Black men specifically, feeling like we always have to have the answer. We always have to have
hard.
It figured out.
That's so hard.
But we don't allow ourselves
to be like, I don't know.
We don't. And then also like to even dive deeper, I don't feel like society as a whole allows Black men to be able to not have it figured out.
Or to just fuck up and be okay.
Right. And that's the thing. Because a lot of times we will feel like
you gotta be perfect.
Yeah, we feel like we have to be perfect. We feel like we have to have it all figured out all the time. And that's what leads to like the depression, the suicidal ideations, because we're like, oh, I'm not doing life right because I'm lost right now. There's something wrong with me because I don't have it all figured out right now. This is a me problem because everybody else that I'm seeing, looks like they haven't figured out. But they just
being as performative.
Right. And we're all just wearing the mask. And nobody has decided, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm going to take it off and actually be real. So we all believe that we should all have it figured out because our thought process is all the people around us have it figured out. And they're telling me that I should have it figured out. You get what I'm saying? So it's exhausting.
I mean, to be honest, that is just like a consequence of living in the US.
Okay. Break that down. Explain that.
Because the culture Okay, listen, you just gonna be having me go to other stuff.
No, it's all right. That's what we have.
So,
it's all good. Mm-hmm.
Here, so let's bring some historical context.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Black body. Your value is in your labor. Your objectification of what you do with your body in terms of your sexual aptitude. In terms of how well you entertain me. I'm a white person.
Okay.
And your ability to reproduce other bodies that I could use for labor. So what that does is our sense of identity becomes very much associated with what we do with our body.
Mm-hmm.
How sexual we are, how well we entertain, how well we seduce, and how well we work. And that is a root identity issue for a lot of people in Black bodies in this country. You don't know that your value is beyond how hard you work. You don't know that your value is more than your WAP. You don't know that your value is more than what you slanging.
Hey, man.
You don't know that your value is beyond how objectified you can be. Right? So that's a historical condition. But just in the US, everything is so work driven.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is just our society, no matter what class, color, right? How much can I make? How much excess can I accumulate? Right. So we're so driven by the idea of more here that it's actually not American wise, like US, it's not a value to be content. It's not a value to be grateful. Whereas you can go into other countries and life is not centered around work. It's centered around family. It's centered around community. It's centered around love. It's centered around connection. When you know that your purpose is connected to joy or love or helping, there's a very different sense of identity that you have than my value is connected to how much I obtain and who I can become in the eyes of someone else, right? So then we're getting back to Black men, right? All these conversations about high valuable people, right? It's often associated with what you wear, what you make. So then you have all these Black men, not only just hearing from white men that their value is based off of what they do in society, but now you're hearing it from people who think that that's what Black women want too. And that's hard because no one's saying your value is in how well you love. No one's saying your value is in how integrous or compassionate you are. No one is saying your value is in how playful or creative you are. I'm saying like, how well can you fuck me and make me money or give me money? And that's really hard. And then be respectful enough and then not be too emotional and then like be gentle enough, but then you need to be aggressive and assertive enough. It's like a lot of boxes that doesn't allow you to just be an authentic human being. And it's just not like that in other countries. There's so much more room for you to just breathe.
First of all, I appreciate you because we have touched on so many things. And I thought we were going to it's been generally around grief, but there is so much that you've covered that has just really been eye-opening for me, man. I was just like, wow. So it's really been a good conversation, man. I wanted to get back into grief a little bit and discuss complicated grief because you talked about disenfranchisement. I want to ask you about like the different types. So let's start there. Let's talk about the different types. Yeah. Right. Some of the other types of grief, and then let's also talk about complicated grief.
Yeah. So in general, we have acute grief, which is short term in terms of this was the activating event, right? And so this grief might last anywhere between 6 to 8 months, right? Then we have like chronic grief that can extend some years. Then you have complicated grief, which is really a form of chronic grief. And there are interruptions in the functioning of your life. Like it's very difficult for you to maintain relationships, to foster relationships. It's very difficult for you to stay in work. It's very difficult for you to keep a job. The things that have to do with your daily function are so connected to your grief that it causes an issue. And that's really what complicated grief is about. And so when we're not even aware that we're grieving, we're not always aware of how grief can permeate the different aspects of our life. Yeah. And to be honest, like being in a Black body in this country is really challenging. And I always say this country because this is a very unique set of circumstances, right? Like people are humans and they experience grief in any place, right? But how grief culturally is experienced in different parts of Ghana are not experienced the same way here, right? Like you think about a funeral, it's full celebration. You have people that you don't even know coming, and that's welcoming. Right? People dress up, you're driving down the street. Oh, look at people, the groups of people playing music, like everybody there. Community, celebrate, go, right? Like I know in different Nigerian tribes, like if a person is here, family is here, friends are here, they will come for a month to 2 months after somebody dies to just feed the family, to love on the family, to just be there, right? Because the idea that loss happens is normalized. The idea that change happens is normalized. There is an affinity for ancestral veneration. There is an affinity, meaning like you're connected to your ancestors, you bring them into your spaces, you acknowledge that they're guiding you, they're protecting you, that they're there. Even for those who might be Catholic and Christian, they're still just like, for African peoples, that part of traditional spirit is still there, right? Whereas here, because you are disconnected from that cultural aspect, everything is compartmentalized, right? Once someone is dead, that's it. Like that's how it is here in the culture. And it creates so much more internal distress because it's also not real. Right. And so who am I without this person? What is my life like without this person? Everything that was connected to this person is gone. There's not the understanding that you can create altars and you can have ritual and you can memorialize this person every day of your life. And it's not seen as crazy. It's okay that you wear their jacket. It's okay that you have pictures of them up and a candle up. It's okay that you do this. But it's, again, we go back to culture, right? And so for complicated grief, you weren't able to really integrate the reality of the loss into your existence to continue living. So you're just stuck.
Tiffany.
You're stuck and in very intense pain. And so the reason I bring up folks in Black bodies is because there's so much that we are grieving. It becomes very complex in and of itself. Right? You have people who have family members that have been institutionalized. Like this is not my life, but I cannot imagine someone whose parent ended up going to prison for selling drugs. And then now, like a place like LA, you got all these like Eastern European and like Middle Eastern people owning dispensaries everywhere. But your dad has been in prison for 30, 40, 50 years because they were selling something. But now you get to see all these people becoming millionaires and they technically selling something, right? there can be a persistent sense of anger that you have towards the system, towards all these things because of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there could be complicated grief in that,
Mm.
right? So there are things that this man was taken away from you, this loved one was taken away from you, right? Like, you know, people who go through really bad divorces or separations, like people who lose their children, right? Like it's out of order for a child to die before their parent.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And especially with individuals that lose a person to like a car accident, police brutality, like all these things, there's persistent reminders that that's always happening.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so being here in this place in Black bodies is just really complex in itself. And so when we're adding on grief, there's just so much that if we're not able to create space for our grief, it will fester and feed within us and create a complete disruption to our lives.
Oh my gosh. There's so much that you said, but there's one thing that I have not been able to get off of. And I was like, I have to mention this. Ancestral veneration. Is that what you said? Is that the word you used? Yeah. I saw a clip on social media. I think it was a pastor. He was talking about, he was just mentioning how there's a lot of people that like praise Jesus, but then also talk to their ancestors. And he was kind of slighting it.
I'm that person.
Right. And I'm that person too. And I'm just like, yo, bro, I feel like we've done such a disservice to like the Black community to make it a sin for like, or make it seem as a sin for us to talk to our ancestors. Like when I came back from Ghana, I was talking to my bros. I was like, yo, bro, I feel so connected to my grandmother on my dad's side. My dad is my Ghanaian parent. My mom is Trinidadian. And I was like, yo, I feel so connected to my grandmother now that I've been to Ghana, but I have literally never met this woman. I have never met her. She passed away when my dad was around my age. I have never met her. When I was in Ghana, though, I felt her presence. There's nobody that can convince me otherwise. So for people to sit here and say, oh, it's demonic or it's a sin for you to speak to your ancestors when they're already communicating with you, it just goes to show how disconnected we are from our roots.
Yeah.
Right? And so when I saw that, I was like, yo, bro, you're leading people astray.
Yeah. You know, that's a slippery slope of a conversation.
I know, Tiffany, I don't give a damn. I really don't care. I don't care because you're not going to convince me of what I know to be true. You can't convince me of what I know to be true.
Yeah.
I know what I felt. I know what that was. And yes, there are evil spirits. I understand that. But we're talking about my grandmother here. Someone that was my dad's mother, that he had a great relationship with. Think she doesn't love me and care about me, doesn't watch over me and protect me, right? You think she's not connected to me, right? So when I went to Ghana, I was like, yo, I was literally, and it's so crazy, I was literally grieving my grandmother that I have never met. I'm crying in the hotel. I'm like, why the hell am I crying right now? I don't ever think about this lady, ever. But why am I crying right now? Because I feel her presence. I feel her presence, and I know what I'm missing right now. Because her presence was so heavy. Yeah. And I knew what I was missing. And I'm like, damn, I didn't get to meet you in the physical. I'm so sad that I did not get to meet you in the physical, but I feel you spiritually right now.
Right. Yeah. Again, mind, body, spirit connection. It's pretty interesting. When I'm working with folks, I lead with that. And when I say spirit, it's intuitiveness, it is the metaphysical, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be attached to a specific religious practice. But there are experiences that go beyond our five senses. And most people just don't really understand that here. Here, again, I'm always going to bring in the cultural thing, right? Because yes, you can be Trinidadian and Ghanaian, right? But and also part of your culture is like American, right? And so like there are very poisonous aspects of the American culture that like override things that you would really believe in if you were in Trinidad, if you were in Ghana, right?
Yep.
And so I'm not racist. I'm not. And also I'm into history. And in general, different groups of white people take. They take, they steal, they destroy, they destruct. It's not like that for most groups that are not white. Most groups that are not white are connected to the land. They're connected to community. They're connected to each other. They're connected to some higher sense of purpose, and they are very much connected to the ethereal or like the sixth sense, the metaphysical, right? You can see this, you can pull up any like major European connected culture, right? If you're going to look through different Asian cultures, if you're going to look through different indigenous cultures, if you're going to look through different African cultures, this is what you see. And all of these practices predate Christianity. So for me, I understand that regardless if I know these practices, I know these practices. Meaning like they're intuitive. Right. And so that's where the spirit piece comes in. And so when it comes to grief, and just the metaphysical, the understanding that energy is not created nor destroyed, but it continuously moves, you can apply that to those who have physically left their body, that their energy is still with us in this realm. And if a person goes into science, they can learn that there's tons of dimensions that coexist at the same time. There's just way too many things that would be coincidences for us to not realize that it's not just us here. It's not just animals and plants and just us. Like there's more, you know what I mean? So I bring all of that up to say, you know, if a person is experiencing complicated grief or any type of grief, especially because of a loved one or someone that they feel really connected to, you know, this is going to sound very woo-woo. I'm going to tell you about where energy. Let's talk frequency, light, sound, right? That's frequency. It's energy. They are energy and frequency. Oftentimes, spirits communicate through electronics. So what do I mean by that? You have a normal working radio in your car. You start thinking of something and then all of a sudden it like does a thing. You have a normal working cell phone. Then all of a sudden it like goes off and you know, you have a normal working piece of technology, something, and it just randomly starts doing this stuff. That's usually somebody trying to communicate with you. You're thinking of this being and then their favorite song comes on, their TV show comes on, their movie comes on, you hear their name. You feel random prickly on the back of your neck. You feel like somebody is watching you. Like these are things that spirits do to let you know I am here. And I believe that when we give space to memorialize, honor, welcome ancestors into space, you have a very different experience with grieving them than feeling like you're very disconnected from them. My mom passed in 2018. She passed 2 days after coming from a road trip that my best friend Stephanie asked her to actually not go on because she had a feeling that something would happen and she would have an emergency. And the very thing did actually happen. And so she came back from the road trip. She passed. So now every birthday, I have a mini urn. I take my mini urn and some incense, a white candle with me, and I go on a road trip. And I bring it in the car with me. I have a moment of gratitude. I think, I say, as I am speaking to my mother, we're here, and I'm able to continue to integrate her. When I do things, I call her name out. My grandfather, who's very much like a father to me, I do the same thing. I have a different relationship with grief because of my experience of loss with them. I found that loss gifted me so much more than took away from me. There's so much gift, and it's not to spiritualize death, and it's not to spiritualize loss. But again, going back into nature, cycles happen. Loss happens, transformation happens. So like, what do we do with it? And something that I'm very big on, even though I bring up ancestral veneration, with my clients, it's, well, what gifts did they give you? How can you honor them? What did they teach you about life? Like the good, the bad, the ugly. What inspired you about their legacy that you can incorporate in your life? Now that you see that their legacy was their legacy, what do you want your legacy to be? What didn't they get to do that you can do in honor of them? What did they do that they can't do now because they're not here that you can continue to do, right? And so being able to look through the eyes of respect or connection to those who have passed on and integrate them into our current lives, it gives us different purpose. It gives us different sense of connection. And that is a cultural aspect that exists in a lot of places outside of the US.
Yes, we have been, and I do not say this lightly, we have been robbed, literally robbed in the US. Thinking that, like what you said, grieving, especially when we go through grief, that that's the end. Like that's the end. You can't talk to them. There's no, if you have a connection with them after, you're sinning, you're talking to spirits, you're crazy. Like that whole thought process, once I went to Ghana and came back, I was like, yo, people are so lost. This is not, like, I was lost. This is not how things are at all. There's nobody that can convince me otherwise. I'm not going to argue anybody down. I'll let people say whatever they want to say because I'm going to put that clip up.
Because let me tell you something. When I went to Cape Coast, them was the angriest waters that I've ever been around. I told you I'm a beach bum. Okay. But when you go to Ivory Coast, that water is angry. The waves that crash, you cannot tell me that there's no spirits in them waters. When you go into the ports, when you go into the dungeons of the castles.
Oh my Lord.
You cannot tell me nothing is there. Oh my
God, man.
Because the goosebumps.
I get goosebumps just thinking about
that
it.
I got.
Yeah. Yep.
Going to Anso Manso River. Like, you cannot tell me these places where like these deathly horrifying things occurred in the name of God, by the way. Because God was on some scripture on the back of every boat, above every door return. There's some scripture there. Okay. Again, a different conversation. You cannot tell me that there's nothing there.
Tiffany.
Because I felt it, right? And so I think that part of the metaphysical experience is people experiencing it, but you gotta be grounded and connected enough to be connected to those things. And it goes back to what we've been talking about, creating space and experiencing connection versus disconnection.
Tiffany, I always tell my girls asked me the other day, what's your favorite memory in life? I was like, going to Ghana with my dad, because I went to Ghana with my dad. We spent 3 weeks together. Changed my life. I would never. I don't care what I go through. I don't care how much money I make. I don't care what happens. There will never be another experience in my life that is more impactful, that I hold on to more than my experience going to Ghana. And I do not say that lightly. Yeah. One of the things that you said that really just resonated with me, and I forget some of this. It's so crazy how you can forget things so quickly. When I went to Ghana, we went and we visited the slave castles. We visited Elmina Castle, and we visited I think there's Cape Coast. I think it's Cape Coast, right? I can't remember which castle we went to, or it may not have even been a castle. It may have been one of the forts that they were holding somebody in. They had held somebody prisoner. I can't remember the person's name, but they held somebody prisoner in that fort, I believe. And we went and we walked into like the dungeon that the person was held captive in. And when I walked into the dungeon, and mind you, this was probably like the third or maybe the fifth or sixth dungeon that I walked into at that point. I walked into that dungeon. I couldn't even, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it now.
I got them right now, okay?
Tiffany, I could not walk fully into the dungeon. Something stopped me. I'm in the moment. My dad is walking in and I'm walking backwards. I'm walking out. And I couldn't even speak for a few seconds. I just couldn't even speak. I don't even know what was happening. I just walked out. Literally, we were supposed to walk in. People are walking in. I took 2 steps in. I stopped. My body started backtracking. Yeah. Whoever was in there, my body was, whatever was happening, my body was like, no, bro. Right. Not here. My dad walks out. He looks at me. He's like, I'm like, yo, I couldn't. I just couldn't. And mind you, like I said, I had been inside. This wasn't the first dungeon. I had been inside 5 dungeons at least. I get you. Up until that point, where they turn the lights are off, they lock you in there, all that. I walked into that one. It was the smallest one that I was in. I couldn't even get in there. I couldn't even walk in there. Yeah. So when people talk about spirits and you're not supposed to communicate and all this kind of stuff, that is complete to me personally. Everybody do what they need to do. However you feel about it, I personally don't care. Right. You know your past. You know your journey. Your experiences. My truth. Right. I know my truth. But even, you know what? I had so much, on the topic of grief, I had so much grief when I went to Ghana. Explain why.
It's complicated, but I know the next time I got to go to Kumasi. I got to go up.
Oh, you didn't go to Kumasi?
No, I didn't. So I was in Aburi and Accra. And so the reason I'm going to bring this up, because when we talk about complicated grief or grieving things we don't even know we're grieving, I had romanticized going to Ghana for over 15 years. I really wanted to go. And I was hoping to see traditional African practices.
Oh, yeah. You were in Accra? You was in Accra?
And when I saw big white Jesuses everywhere, I said, oh my God, what is this? He's here too? What? Could he not be black? What's wrong with y'all? Right? And so the intensity of the grief connected to disappointment. And for some reason, even though I know it happened here, I just didn't. I thought it impacted us more, not you there.
No, yeah.
Right? So that indoctrination based off of the colonization experience was something that was very I cried almost every day, the first week I was there. There was that. There was what I describe as I could see me and you, but you can't see you and me.
Explain that.
You see me as an American. Oh, so y'all not really on that sister brother shit.
But you know what? Accra is different.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
I had a experience where I felt emotionally violated coming out of one of the castles.
Okay.
I was crying and somebody was trying to get me to buy something. And it's like, can you not see that I'm crying?
Like, nah, nope.
Buy this shell. Now I understand why you need to be out here to make this money. But do you not understand what I just went through?
No.
Going through this? No. Because a lot of them don't even know. Right. No. And so these are like, it was just so much. And so the only reason I just wanted to break, it was thing after thing. Learning about how much the Chinese got their hand in Ghana. Learning about how the electricity and the energy is controlled. Learning that the palace ain't even built by Ghanaians. Learning about like all this stuff. Learning that we're going to Asomanso River and the road guard doesn't ask our guide, why do Americans always come down this road? And you're less than a mile away from this last stop that Ghanaians were collected, branded, and sold off to different countries, and you don't know. I expected you to know everything.
No, you know. And
I was so sad and disappointed to know that they fucked y'all people more than us to some degree.
But you know what? But you know what's so wild? When I went to Ghana, man.
But it was a lot of grief around what I thought
was gonna be the reality.
And I wanted to bring that in because that is an experience of grief that we have. We can romanticize marriage, and then you get into your marriage
and you're like,
what is this?
This ain't what I thought.
What is this? I want to go to school. I want to get into a doctorate program. I start my doctorate program. Is this what I wanted? I don't know. Is this what, we can have experiences where we have so much hope or romanticize something, and the depths of pain that we experience around the reality of what something is, that causes a lot of grief for a lot of people. For parenthood, for not knowing somebody and then you meet them, for a job, for a dream, anything. Like, there's so much grief around that stuff. And then when we're talking about identity stuff, right? As Black people, this idea of what you're connected to and how Black you are, or you're African or you're not African, like, there's so many like layers to like what our experience is as in terms of our identity and African identity, right? That, okay, you're in this place where you had to create identity because it was taken from you, right? Or your ancestors. And then maybe even interacting with a first generation person or like somebody that is not first generation and just came over, that might be a very different experience than interacting with someone that's not, right? And like, there's grief around acceptance even within our community. I'm not Black enough. I'm not African enough. I'm not hood enough. I'm not clean enough. I'm not wealthy enough. I'm not acceptable enough. And so we have so many layers to grief that we experience as Black people in this country that are so unique specifically to us, right? Like, I don't know New York in and out like that, but like, I'm sure there's some places like you can go and like you can be accepted, and in other places you can go and you like not, right?
Oh, for sure.
And what does that feel like in terms of your identity? Do you grieve the sense of belonging, right? Because that's a thing, to want to experience something or be somewhere and go somewhere and you not be accepted, because we're social creatures.
Right.
Or the opposite, maybe you from this place and you trying to get to this place. But are you ever going to be accepted in that place? Or the grief that you have of, well, I went to the Jay-Z exhibit, right? I can only imagine like the mind fuck that went through his head as he's a billionaire. He's created 2 billionaires. What it took for him to get to the projects to be a billionaire, there's so much stuff that your mind had to go through. We're not talking about hustle, but like feeling like you're deserving of being in these spaces, feeling like you're worthy of being in these spaces, feeling like you didn't betrayed the people here just to get here. Like there's such a spectrum of grief that you have to go through to like transform in your life if you're moving from one type of environment to like another, or with some type of people to another. So there's so much. I just want to bring that back in, that there's so much that happens with grief in our identity when we're on this road of bettering ourselves, finding out who we are, understanding our identity, defining who we are, that we don't always give space to acknowledge as well.
Man, one of the things, I know we got to wrap up soon because you got to catch a flight, and I do not want you to miss that flight.
Yes.
So we're gonna wrap wrap up for sure. But I just wanted to speak to the Ghana bit that you spoke on. Accra and Kumasi, for all my New
Night
Yorkers.
and day. I know that.
Yeah, for all my New Yorkers, let me break it down to you. Accra is like Manhattan, Kumasi is like Queens. Right?
Of course, Queens.
So the reason why, honestly, the reason why I say Queens is because Queens is a lot more chill. You're going to have your spots where you can go and do stuff, but you're going to have your spots where you can chill and relax. Manhattan is like the city. Everybody's on go mode. Everybody's hustling, blah, 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 right? Accra is similar, right?
Yeah.
That's the capital,
Right.
right? That's where you have all the activity. That's when people go to Ghana. Where you went? Oh, I went to Accra. It's like, okay, you went to Ghana, but it's like, I don't want to slight anybody.
Right.
Come on, bro.
Right.
So Kumasi, like when I went to Kumasi, I told my dad, I said, I never want to step foot in Accra for longer than however long it takes me to get to Kumasi.
I can imagine
because when I went to Accra, and the difference is really is night and day. And I'm not gonna say that you're gonna see all the tradition in Kumasi. You're not gonna see all the tradition in Kumasi.
But it's more intact there.
Yes, and there's a lot more like of that, like the family feel, the people seeing you as you are my sister.
Right.
You're going to get more of that.
Right.
In Kumasi. Like we went to a hotel, I'm gonna shout them out, Micklin Hotel in Kumasi. And those people treated me like family. Now granted, they obviously knew that I was from the United States, but they did treat me like family. And when people knew like, oh, you're Ghanaian and it's your first time back to Ghana, like they were like, yo, you need to come back. We want you to come back more. The Kumasi Cultural Center, that's a place that you can go and get some history on like some of the things that, like some of the traditions in Kumasi, the different tribes, and like going to the past, all that. Kumasi
naming ceremony, all the stuff.
Yes, Kumasi was amazing, man. That's where I spent most of my time when I was in Ghana, and I like when I go back, that's where I'm gonna be, right? Like because like it just felt like home. Like I'm not saying Accra did it.
No, I get you though.
But Kumasi just felt like home. So I really want you to go back.
Oh yeah, I'll be going back next year. Okay. Actually, yeah. So I have family. I have an uncle who splits his time between there and Chicago. Okay. And so I have a Ghanaian family actually, because he has a wife and like 4 children and stuff like that. So
is he in Kumasi?
Aburi.
Okay.
Yeah, which is right above Accra. But next time that I go, we're going to.
Hey, I love it. Yeah. Tiffany, man, can you first of all give people some insight on what they can do if they're trying to help somebody that's navigating grief? Because we have a lot of Black women that follow that are probably like, my man is going through something and I don't know how to help him. What the hell do I do? Right? Or maybe we have a Black man that follows that has a bro that's going through something and he doesn't know what to do. Right? So can you give some insight on what they can do, and then follow it up where people can find you, how people can support, and we'll wrap it up that way so you can catch your flight.
So there's 2 sides to this. I would say ask a person what they need.
Right.
Now, everybody doesn't know what they need, so then that's where the challenge comes in, right? Because if you ask a person, oh, you know, what do you need? Maybe they say, I just need you to be understanding. Maybe they say, just send me funny stuff. Maybe just be here with me, right? Some people have that language and that self-awareness, and a lot of people don't. So if a person like, nothing, I'm good, I'm cool, just continue to check on them. Something that came up in our group recently was somebody mentioned like people know that they've lost somebody, but nobody checks on them. And even though they're like, yeah, I'm good, they still want to know that you care and you check on them, right? How you doing, Black man? Give them some gratitude. Thank you for showing up today. I'm so happy that I got to talk to you. You know, I'm proud of you for continuing, you know, showing up for yourself. You know, I don't know what you're experiencing right now, but I want to let you just know. I just want to let you know that I'm here. Right. Even if people are not verbalizing their needs, verbalizing their sorrow, being there and being loyalty is such a understated value for Black men. Like, loyalty is such a big thing.
Yeah.
And so you just being there and creating space for them, whether they decide to utilize it or not, is important.
Yep.
Just so that they know, right?
Yep.
And then when they do want to utilize it, make sure you're available. Because then if you don't, then that might impact the trust.
Yeah. Yo.
So I would say that
real.
For sure.
That's so real, because a lot of times we don't communicate that we have these needs because we're just not comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But we do have them.
Right.
So that loyalty aspect is very real.
Yeah.
Man.
So for sure, I would say just the consistent checking in, because again, as I've talked about before, I feel like Black men more so, or in a very different way than Black women, deal with feelings of inferiority and invisibility. Like, because Black men are not seen for just the beauty of who they are. They're seen for their role as protector, provider, what they do, how they act, how they look, but just as like a human being needing love and safety and security and gentleness in whatever way that Black man actually needs it. They're not seen as that, right?
Yep.
So you being able to fill that space in a supportive way that is comfortable for that Black man is important. When it comes to finding me, you can find me on Instagram at Tiff Inspires, so TIFF Inspires. I have a website, TiffanyWrightMSW.com. That leads to everything that I do. And I'm just really grateful to be in connection with you, you know, to be able to serve, you know, your community, to be on this space. I feel like I have such a beautiful relationship with grief. And it is definitely a part of my passion to help normalize it for people and to help people have a healthy relationship with grief, because it's just a part of life, you know.
Man.
So thank y'all.
Of course. Tiffany, man, this has been dope. I just want to close with just saying, there are not a lot of episodes that I have where I'm like, yo, I think I might want to watch this one back. I actually don't watch my episodes back. I don't know if I do not enjoy.
He's like, let me edit and publish.
I do not enjoy rewatching the episodes. No, I don't enjoy rewatching the reels. There's very few episodes or pieces of content that I'm like, yeah, I want to rewatch this. This conversation, though, like, is definitely one of those, man. This has been a really good conversation, and I know I'm going to reference it in the future for people that are dealing with grief, but not even just grief, like just emotional intelligence, like availability, connectedness. Like, when people ask me, why do I need to connect with my emotions? I have a great episode for you, brother.
Yes, resources.
Go watch that episode. Yes, seriously, man. This has been a really good episode. And I just want to let people know that are watching, listening. If you are interested, right, we do teach that webinar, right? So if you're like thinking through, you know, I'm dealing with something, it may not be grief, it could be the functional depression, it could be a variety of the things that we discussed today, and you want to get connected with a therapist, please sign up for that webinar and let us take you through that process, right? That's, again, it's linked in our bio on Instagram. That's Express Yourself Black Man. It's also on TikTok. And then it's also on our website, expressyourselfblackman.com/links. And it should be linked in the description of this podcast episode. So please tap in, do yourself a favor, And if you want to get access to the support group that Tiffany does inside of Safe Haven, all you need to do is join Safe Haven. That's linked in our bio as well. It's expressyourselfblackman.com/safe-haven. And you can get access to that. But please tap in with Tiffany. Because Tiffany,
go ahead.
One thing.
Mm-hmm. So, we were talking a lot about identity.
Yeah.
And that is one of my focuses for therapy. And so I've self-published a slew of things.
Okay.
And so if today's conversation really inspired you or impacted you to do some identity work, you can get this on my website, but I would definitely uplift my Pieces of Me workbook. It's an identity workbook where it's 3 parts. You're exploring all the interpersonal stuff. So things that have to do with yourself, like your values, your identity, how you express yourself, what matters to you, all of these things. And then your interpersonal work, which is how you relate to people. So communication, boundaries, emotional expression. It's a lot of worksheets in there about that, emotional rules, your role in your family, your role in your community. And then the third section is coping skills. So there's tons of worksheets that help you move through how to, regulate stress and stuff like that. So basically this is a workbook that you're doing literal work. It's over 100 pages of worksheets in there.
And where can they get that? What is it?
They can find that on Amazon. It's called Pieces of Me.
Okay.
And then they can just type in my name, but it's also just on my website, TiffanyWrightMSW.com.
With that, we are good to go. Tiffany, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I appreciate you, man.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you are planning an event or you are part of your organization's Black employee group and you are interested in having dope Black mental health professionals or myself come in and do a speaking engagement or a workshop or a keynote address or a panel, please click the link in our bio on Instagram or TikTok, scroll down and click book us for speaking and brand deals and fill out the form available on our website. Once you fill out the form, one of our team members will get back to you about how we can collaborate and create something dope for your organization. This is an unparalleled opportunity. We are currently the largest Black men's mental health platform, and we have a few slots available for our calendar year, and we would love to partner with you to create something dope for your organization if it makes sense for both parties, right? So go to the link in our bio, scroll down, click book us for speaking and brand deals, and fill out that form. If you're not on Instagram, the link should be linked in our description of this episode. And it is also on our website. If you go to expressyourselfblackman.com/speaking-brand-deals. That's expressyourselfblackman.com/speaking-brand-deals. If you are looking for a therapist, a Black therapist, and you've had a hard time finding one, you've jumped from therapist to therapist, or you just don't know how to find a therapist, we are teaching a free webinar. It's completely free, taking you from not knowing how to find a therapist, not knowing where to search for therapists, struggling with finding good therapists for you, not knowing what to look for in therapists, teaching you all of those different things, and also giving you the opportunity at the end of the webinar to be connected with one of our Safe Haven healers who are Black mental health professionals so that you do not have to go through the struggles of finding a Black therapist alone anymore, right? So if you're interested in that, you want to get connected with a Black mental health professional at the end of the webinar, or you just want to learn how to find a Black therapist by yourself, you can sign up for the free webinar. It's linked in our bio on Instagram and TikTok. You just click that free webinar link once you click the link in our bio and fill out the form. You can also find it on our website at expressyourselfblackman.com/links and fill out the form there for our next webinar session. If you're not interested in any of that, right, but you know someone that may be interested in it, all we ask is that you please share it. If you want some of the merch that we show on the platform all the time, that we're wearing on the platform all the time, you can shop it at shop.expressyourselfblackman.com. And once again, we just want to say thank you so much for watching this episode. Thank you so much for supporting us. Please, if you are on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe, comment. If you're listening to this on an audio platform, please leave a review. It helps us out greatly. Thank you so much for your support. We're wishing you nothing but the best and sending you and your family and your loved ones love and light. Peace.
Sometimes I know you feel like you ain't got nobody to speak to. A shoulder to lean on somebody you could preach to. No, you need to hear it, my brother, I love you. We got way too much to live for.